Open your book to page 476. Today's lesson is to multiply the products and quotients that's more than one term. So let's go to example 1 on page 476. So you have the square root of 2 times 3 square root of 2 minus 5. So to multiply multiple terms, what you need to do is you have to go and use the distributive property. So you're going to distribute. So when you multiply, it would be easier if you multiply the square root first. Okay, so again, use the fingers will help you. So when you multiply, this will give you an integer 2. So integer 2 times 3 will give you 6. Right? So multiply this first. And then the next one, you distribute. So again, when you multiply, this will give you minus 5 square root of 2. And that's it. Okay?
That's the answer?
Okay, let's go to example 2. Okay, example 2. You have 2 square root of 3 minus 5 times by 4 square root of 3 minus 6. So you have 2 terms times 2 terms. So you have to use the FOIL method. Okay, so first, again, you distribute. So you want to multiply the square roots first. So this would be a 3. So radical 3 times radical 3. Right, this will give you integer 3 times 2 times 4. So 3 times 2 is 6 times 4 will give you 24. Okay, so after you multiply, you go to the next one by use your FOIL method, right? So when you multiply, this will give you minus 12 square root of 3. So once you're done with the first term, you go to the next term. So again, this is a review from multiplication, right? We did a lot of this back in earlier chapter, right? So when you multiply, this will give you minus 20 square root of 3. And then after you multiply this one, so this will become plus 30. So again, that's your FOIL method. Now, after you multiply, you need to go and combine the like terms. So 24 and 30 will give you 54. And the square root parts, okay, these two parts will give you minus 32 square root of 3. Okay, and that's it. So let's go to example 3. So again, all these are just distributive property. Okay. So let's go to example 3. You have square root of 7 plus 2. Then you have the square root of 7 minus 2. So you need to recognize this is your conjugates. So when you have conjugates, you multiply by the matching term, right? Because the O and the I will get cancelled out. So when you multiply, this will give you 7. Plus times minus will give you minus. 2 times 2 will give you 4. And so your answer would be 3. Right? So again, this is your conjugate. So when you multiply and you work it out. Okay, now let's go to example 4. So you got 3 square root of 5 minus 7x squared. So again, this is a special product. This is your perfect square. So to multiply perfect square, remember you square this, you're going to get 9. You square the square root of 5, you get 5, right? So you just go and square each part. And you square that, will give you plus. You square this, will give you 49. You square that, you get x squared, right? And remember, your middle term is multiply all this together, right? So first you take care of the sign. The sign is negative. The number is 2 times 3 is 6 times 7 is 42, and you have the square root of 5, and you have the x, right? So just put all this together. Okay, again, first you take care of the sign, so you get negative, and the number, you just go and multiply. So it doesn't matter the order, right? Multiplication is commutative, right? So you can switch any order you want. So you can, 2 times 3 is 6, times 7 is 42. Then after you go to the square root, and you go to the variables. And after that, you can go and continue to work it out to simplify. So this one you can multiply. So you get 45. And this one you cannot simplify. Okay, and so that would be your answer. So make sure you know how to do the spatial products. So especially the conjugate. You're gonna see this quite often. So make sure you know how to do conjugates. Okay, let's go to page 478. And let's go to example 5. So you have 3 square root of 14 minus square root of 8 over square root of 2. Just like the previous homework, when you have binomial, the easiest thing to do is just go and separate the two terms. So go and separate the 2. Then after that, you can go and simplify each part individually. And to simplify, you can go and cancel, right? You can divide. So this is 1 and this is 7. So this will give you 3 square root of 7. Now what you want to do is, once you cancel out, right, you want to write it down right away. Because if you do all the cancellation, when you try to go back, you might forget some parts and you might make a mistake, right? So this one you cancel. So square root of 4 is 2, and you check, see if you can simplify more. Cannot, so that's it, right? So again, the key to this type of problem is go and separate the two terms and do each term individually. Okay, now let's go to example 8. Example 8a, you got 2 over 1 plus square root of 3. Okay, so you have a square root in the denominator, so you cannot have that. So you need to find a way to get rid of that. But before, right, if you just have one term, then you multiply by square root of 3, right? So if you have one term, you multiply by one term. But over here, you got two terms. So in order to get rid of that, you need to multiply by two terms. Because if you multiply by square root of 3, it's not going to work. Because this is what's going to happen. If you multiply by square root of 3 over square root of 3, then what's going to happen is that you have a 1 over here. So when you multiply, you're going to end up with square root of 3 plus 3. So you're still going to get stuck with that. So you cannot do that anymore. Okay? Now, again, if you have only one term, you multiply by one term. When you have two terms, you need to multiply by two terms. And from the conjugate we did earlier, see over here, when you have conjugate, you were able to get rid of the square root. So the conjugates are used to get rid of the square root. So to get rid of the square root, you need to multiply by conjugate. So what you want to do is, you need to multiply by 1 minus square root of 3. Okay, so again, you have two terms, you need to multiply by two terms. And it has to be a conjugate. And you always multiply the conjugate first. Don't multiply the top yet. Okay, if you multiply the top, you're going to end up with a mess. So do not multiply the top. So leave the top alone. Okay, so don't multiply the top yet, because most of the time you're able to cancel things out. So let's go and multiply the bottom. So again, multiply the conjugate, right? So you're going to get 1. Okay, over here you're going to get minus, and this one you're going to get 3. And so you end up with 2 times square root of 1, 2 times 1 minus square root of 3 over negative 2. Okay, again, do not multiply out the top until you're all done with the bottom and you cancel. Or else you're going to end up with a mess. So this one you can cancel, it becomes, well, this one cancel, it becomes negative 1, right? And negative you can put on the top or the bottom. So now you can multiply out. After you're done with all these, then you multiply out. So you end up with a negative 1 plus square root of 3. Okay, and that's it. So again, do not multiply out the top. If you do, you're going to get into a mess and you're going to get stuck. Okay, so you always do the conjugate to simplify, and then after you can cancel. After you cancel, then you multiply out to get your final answer. Okay, let's go to example B. So again, look over here, you got square root in the denominator, so you need to find a way to get rid of that. So since this is two terms, so you need to multiply by two terms, so the conjugate. Now again, you got to know the conjugate. Conjugate means that the signs are opposite. Okay. So again, multiply by conjugate. And so again, do not multiply on the top. Leave the top alone until you're done with all the canceling. So multiply at the bottom. So this will give you a 5. This will be a minus. And this will be a 3. Now you only do this with the conjugates. Okay? So now you go and work it out. So you got 6 times square root of 5 plus square root of 3. over 2. And then after you cancel, so after you cancel, this is when you're going to multiply out. So you got 3 square root of 5 plus 3 square root of 3. Okay, let's go to example C. You have the z minus 16 over square root of z minus 4. Okay, so you have the square root in the denominator, so you have to get rid of that. To get rid of that, these are 2 terms, so you need to get 2 terms. Right? Again, you have to use conjugate. So if it's a minus, you need to have a plus. Okay? So since you multiply by conjugate, you need to put conjugate up here. Again, remember, do not, especially this kind, do not multiply out the top. If you do, guarantee you're going to get stuck because it's going to be a mess. Okay, so do not multiply out. So keep in parentheses. Make sure you have parentheses around each group. So now let's go and multiply out the bottom. So you got this one, you're going to get z. Negative times positive would be a minus. Okay, 4 times 4 would be 16. And then after that, you look, see, this one can cancel. So you cancel that. And your answer would be square root of z plus 4. Okay, so let's go and do some practice.